Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, before we get started, I feel like it's been eternity since I've seen you.
I felt the same. I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many things I can't wait to hear about that you've been doing. So start with your trip.
Well, it was amazing. 12 days in Israel. It was definitely a bucket list. There were so many things on there that was on the bucket list. And it was just, it's one of those things where I always think reading the Bible is so hard, especially the Old Testament. So I really think everybody should go to Israel and then read the Old Testament. It'll make so much more sense and it'll be so much more believable. I mean, sometimes don't you think, really, did that happen? But one good thing I want to share with you very quickly, and I know you'll love this because you and I have talked about this before, John Maxwell has never read the Bible all the way through. Do you not?
Really?
Do you not feel better?
Yes. Did he say that?
Yes. Now, he's read the Bible tons.
But not start to finish.
Yes, I love it. I mean, that's a perfect example of we compare our insides to other people's outsides, and we got to stop that, right?
I feel like we're all going to heaven now. Like everything's okay.
Yeah, I definitely am because I got baptized in the Jordan River.
I mean, was that the best part of the trip?
No, it's hard to say. There was a best part every day. That was definitely a highlight, especially because my sister, who we both had birthdays while we were there. We're 10 years and 2 days apart. So first of all, taking her, I'm big into experiences and trying to find unique experiences for the people I really care about and doing them together with other people. And so this was really, she'd never been baptized, and she's one of those people, she's more of an introvert. So the thought of doing it in front of a big church would probably have kept her from doing it the rest of her life.
Yeah.
So I'm so thankful, and we got to do it together.
Oh,
So that was super, super, super cool just because of, the connection there. But there was something every single day. We got to go in the tomb.
Mm-hmm.
That was impactful. I mean, I think reading the Bible now is going to be so much better.
Yeah.
Because you actually walked in places and saw places that you've heard about or read about. It didn't really make that much sense. And when you go with somebody like John Maxwell, you get to do things that nobody else gets to do.
Oh, I had the worst FOMO. I'm like, even when we go, we won't be with John.
Well, that's okay. He's going to do it again in a couple of years. It's a trip. I'm going to be honest. One day we got 18,000 steps. And it's a lot of steps.
So did you ever get scared over there, or was it fine the whole time?
Not at all. No, fine. And we even went to the border and looked over into Syria with a military guy. So with John,
saw that.
You get Bible and you get history and military, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. So I know he's got the second group there right now, and some of the people that I follow on Instagram are over there. The husband and wife that do the Isogenics, Tyler and Kelly, and they've been posting like nonstop on Instagram. And I saw that they went to the border, like they posted that. And then did y'all do communion in the garden or something?
Yes, that was one of my highlights.
Yeah, that's what I saw theirs. I would have loved that.
Yeah, and then when we were at the tomb, there was this other group over to the side, and they were singing Amazing Grace.
Oh.
At the same time, John was giving us a message, and John just kind of faded out, and we all just started singing with them. That was pretty impactful too. That was pretty amazing. So there was just so many things. He's going to probably do this every couple of years. I don't know how he did it 12 days in a row. I
know Adam and I said the same thing. Adam said, do you think that it was better on the first trip or the second trip? Because the first trip, he might have already known more stuff, but he probably had more energy. I said, who knows? Knowing John, they both were probably like exactly the same amazing.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think this group already got to do something we didn't do, which was see a boat that was like the boat. We all got to go on the Sea of Galilee in a boat. That was fabulous.
That's cool.
I think it'll both be great. There's no way John will make it, which by the way leads me to kind of what we're talking about today which is what are some of the things we can learn from paying attention to other businesses that we can all use in our own business. And so I'll start with something from John. You know, he takes whatever would be amazing and then he just one-ups it a little bit more.
Yeah.
He just asks what would just take it over the top. And I think sometimes we just go for good or great or this is amazing, but he doesn't stop there. He just says, what's one, I think he challenges his team to go one more notch above that. And they're so trained to do that now.
They're so intentional. Like, that's why, honestly, he was really the one who, after we left him in London, was when I decided that I wanted my word of the year to be intentional this year. And that was a big reason why, because he is so intentional with every single thing. And you're right. It's like, what would make it like something that nobody would ever even think of? That would be the greatest thing ever.
So from him, yeah, I would say, you know, I love the fact that part of what he gets to do is take people on experiences. I mean, that's so amazing that is one of the things that you do. And of course I think most of his trips are like things for Equip, which is his nonprofit. But, and I got to talk more to his team.
Oh,
and
cool.
In one way, he's a little bit like a lot of other businesses that I learned from, like Dan Sullivan's organization and obviously Gary Keller and Keller Williams. They're really good about getting great people, and then they give their people the authority and ability to do their job.
Yeah.
You know, they don't jump in and do their jobs for them. I didn't see, you know, John ever have to jump in and do anybody's job. You know,
Yeah.
He gets great people and then turns it over to them and empowers them is the word I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be kind of what I would say from John Maxwell. I've got some other companies, but what would be something, what other businesses have you learned from over the years that I think we sometimes look at other realtors instead of looking at other great businesses and say, how can I model what that great business does?
Yeah. So, well, one thing I want to back up that you said about how John hires really great people and then he lets them go and do it. And I was just listening to a podcast, and it was the one before we started recording that I was trying to tell you about. And I'll have to go find it so that we can share it when this drops. But one of the things on this podcast that Dean Jackson talked about was he doesn't, let's see, what did he say? He doesn't hire people and then find ways to motivate them. This guest that was on Dean's, they only hire motivated people. Yeah. And he said that single activity alone basically completely changed the trajectory of this guy's business. I cannot remember what it was now, but he said that for years he felt like he was hiring people who he thought were great. And then he was constantly trying to like find ways to motivate them, to get them to keep going. And he said, so the biggest difference for me is I only hire motivated people, moving forward from this point forward. And that's it. And it was like one of the key things that he looked for. And I really feel like the ones that I know, really only the two good ones on John Maxwell's team, you can tell they're so super motivated.
Yeah. Well, and think about it. How many times have we had people write into our podcast with questions, and 9 times out of 10 is going to be something around how do I motivate my people?
Yeah.
And, having years of trying to do that myself, thinking that, if they weren't motivated, I wasn't doing something right, instead of realizing motivation is something that they already come to the table with. And I know from, leading my regional team and just leading other people, yeah, a lot of times we get kind of stuck in that mud trying to figure out how to fix it. And the truth is, the number one piece of leverage that we all have when we run businesses is to change that person out for someone who is super motivated or who can do it. And I just think about many years ago when I first started trying to put a team leader in one of my offices, I remember how frustrating and hard it was, because I would hear Gary talk about these things, and I would go to the career visioning course and I would read all these characteristics that these people would have, and then I'd come back and it would feel like I was trying to like push a noodle up a hill or something. And I realize now I was never going to win that. That was never going to be, I had to go learn how to get the right people and change out the right people and put them in the right spots. And so most people, so I remember always asking myself, okay, Linda, do you have the right person and have you trained them correctly?
Yeah.
Because one question we can do is say, and to some degree, you really, if it's the right person, don't have to worry about if you've missed training them well. They'll get what they need because they're that motivated.
Yep.
I think if you've got the right person, not that your training's not important, because it is, but I don't think you can screw up a good person because you haven't trained them very well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And, I was just thinking, I think even like the training, I don't know that because I agree with you. I don't necessarily think it's the training. I think it's the resources. So like I just was, and I don't know what made this pop into my head, but so we as a regional team that you lead us just had our big convention, family reunion in Dallas. And so it's like, even when you think that you've got things, pretty well and you did something good, like the fact that you led us to the resource of doing the experience transformer, just like opened my eyes to even more things. So it wasn't even really that we needed you to train us on that. It was that it was great that you gave us the resource of leading us to that resource to help us kind of self-discover what could we have done to even for, talk about John Maxwell, but like plus it up even more for what it is and how can we continue to get better. And so I think sometimes as leaders, it's not even so much as like the training of our people. It's how can you give them resources and lead them and help them self-discover that stuff, because the right people will, I think.
Well, remember, leadership is helping people think the way they need to think so that they can get what it is they want to get.
Yep.
And so one of the beautiful things, and I mean, this has taken a journey of 20 plus years. I'm a slow learner though, so I don't want anybody out there to get discouraged and think, oh my God, it's going to take me 20 years. It could take you 20 years, but it might take you, if you spend more time and energy on it, it could take you less. But, it's taken me years to understand that my role is to help great. And it's so fun because you are such a great team. I mean, so that's different than somebody who's not motivated and who doesn't want big things for their lives. And so to have that team, it's kind of actually gets fun because now all you got to do is try to say, okay, the reality is, because when you've got a territory taking team or a wealth determining team, not somebody who's just supporting necessarily in a role, but when you've got some people like you are, Press and Blair, you guys are wanting to make grounds. You're wanting to take territory. So knowing that you're behaviorally a lot like me, what are my gaps? Where do I struggle? Well, I struggle in slowing down and examining anything, right?
Yep.
So the beautiful thing, I mean, and you guys killed it at family reunion. However, the experience transformer makes every single one of us stop and think for a minute. And I'm going to tell you 99% of my problems, especially like with my assistant, is my communication.
Yeah.
99% of the time. So I've learned to start using these tools, as painful as they can be sometimes, to make myself slow down and say, how good could this person be if I communicated better and I gave them better tools and I pointed them to things that might help them do the same things that I need to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. Very similar in that. So thinking about other businesses that I've learned from, the most for me we've talked about this a little bit before, but have been mega churches. I love to learn from mega church leaders like Angie Stanley, Craig Groeschel, John Maxwell, but like the Catalyst event in Atlanta that I go to everywhere that I'm really excited that you're going to go to this year too. It's just, they run mega churches in such a similar way to how we run Keller Williams offices, and even how you could run your team or a region or any of those things. So I would say over the last 3 years, I have learned so much from just the way that mega churches are ran, the way that they hire people, the way that they create small groups. Like one of the biggest things that's been my takeaway from last year is how these mega churches have thousands and thousands of people that come there every single week. And there's just one, maybe two pastors per se, and they don't know everybody. Like you don't know the pastor personally in some situations or some churches, and you may not even know some of the main people that are up there, but they've created these communities and these small groups in such a way that everyone still comes because they're a part of the community and they're obviously getting value and all that stuff. And so lately I've been thinking about that in relationship to an office or like real estate office, or even into your team. And I don't have a big team like that, but some people who have really large teams. And if you can think about it that way and create even like smaller groups or these communities, like there's just so many different things that have had my wheels turning lately in regards to listening to them even more. But I know in your guys' church is pretty big, that Matt Chandler does, right?
Yeah, and we do home groups.
Home groups, yeah.
And there's different subgroups. Yeah, I think a lot of times, especially running our offices, we can learn a lot from those churches.
Yes.
Something that jumps out at me that I've noticed about all the leaders that I really admire that have built massive businesses, and I want to role model myself after. And this one is a hard one for me because I like to do everything. And so what I've really noticed about Dan, what I've noticed about Gary, what I've noticed about John is their lane is very narrow and it goes real deep. They don't go real wide. And probably for the most part of my life, I'm always trying to go really super wide instead of saying, what's the one thing that if I only did this one thing, I could do it for the next 25 years and love every second of it. You know, because you think about everything that you do, you don't love all of it, right? And I think Dan has this exercise that you do where, you know, what's motivating, what gets you excited, what do you love doing, what are you passionate about doing, and then what just irritates the crap out of you.
I love that exercise because remember, that's the one where I was trying to talk about on a previous episode that one of those categories is you're really, really, really good at it and you can do it at a high level, but it may not be what you love.
Right. Exactly. So that's the thing I've noticed and I keep working to perfect in my own life is, you know, Gary Keller does not get out of his lane. He just does not. You can't get him. Matter of fact, I had somebody recently say, you know, he's so hard to get to and get in front of. And I said, well, it's because he stays in his lane and he has people that does all the other stuff. So you're probably trying to get in his lane with something that is not in his, you know, not in his unique ability. And then with Dan, you know, his whole team is a unique ability team. In other words, everybody takes, you know, now his team doesn't do just one thing, but they do majority of their time is spent on the one thing that's their unique ability. And so that's been really my focus, especially the last couple of years of how do I master that? Because I know the ability to go to the next level and the higher level is going to be the better and better I get at being clear about just what my unique ability is and how do I just do that? And how do I make every day more and more of my time just doing that one thing and quit trying to go wide with everything? So that's been huge for me with the leaders that I follow because I've really started paying attention to they don't do everything. They stay in their lane. And, you know, they do that thing that they could do for the next 25 years and never get bored of it or, you know, not like it. And so that's, to me, something that's unique that in the real estate industry, we tend to want to try to do everything instead of saying, what's the one thing? And then find my people and my team that they have the unique ability to do all the other things on that for that business.
So I feel like, because I think people are going to have a ton of questions around this. What do you think is the best way for people to go about, even just in the beginning stages of if they're doing tons of stuff, say, like finding their unique ability or figuring out what it is that they really need to go deep on, especially when they're getting a lot of opportunities. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think a couple of things. I think one, remember years ago we did an exercise where, and I think it was, I can't remember who had us do it, but one of our coaches or something had us do something where we did an exercise and we checked on where were we spending the most time with the thing that made us the most money or the one that was our biggest opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we do one of two things. We either spend time on things that scream our name, that are like fires we need to put out, instead of the most dollar productive things. You know, I think one of the best things that ever helped me in my real estate sales was when I started logging. I would take my calendar and I would write beside the activity, what was that $1 per hour? Was that a $20 an hour activity? Was that a $300 or $500? And then my goal was to keep getting my dollar per hour up higher and higher and higher. So till it was $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever the number you're shooting for.
Mm-hmm.
And then just being honest with yourself and going back and looking at your calendar and saying, how much of my time is actually spent on that? I can't tell you the times I go to a meeting with Gary and I go home and look at my calendar and go, the reason my life isn't where I want it to be yet is because I don't do enough career visioning yet.
Yeah.
And it's the thing I get. And every time I go, it's the same thing. So
yeah, you always say that. And then when you say it, it makes me think about it.
it's the most dollar productive thing we can do, but because it's not necessarily easy to realize that unless you slow down long enough to really think about the places in your life where you made the most financial gain, is usually around you getting a right person. And to get a right person, you have to do more career visioning.
Yep.
I'm going to backtrack that a little bit. So I think people need to, number one, for me, when it was in the real estate business, I made the most money and had the best time when all I did was take listings.
Yep. Me too. Yeah.
I slowly took myself, and I think your energy tells you, think about those moments when you go, gosh, I could do this forever. I wish I had more of my calendar filled with this. And so as you start paying attention to that, you'll start to realize, wow, I love doing this. And how do I make this something that I do more and more and more of? And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the most dollar productive thing you do anyway.
Yeah.
So that's one for me. Something that's really stands out at Dan's organization also that I love, and I can't wait. He's going to be on our podcast coming up in a month or so, I think, or something like that. But is his backstage, front stage. He was in the military, and he was the coordinator for like shows for the military.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this is where he kind of learned thinking about backstage and front stage. So on front stage would be, you would list out every place in your business where you have an opportunity to touch your customers or your clients or whoever.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And then you think about what all has to happen on the backstage to be able to pull that off at a high level. And so, thinking about there's two sides to your business. There's what the public sees, and then there's what has to happen so that you have they have a great experience, and they want to refer everybody to you, and they want to send business to you, and they want to be with you and spend time with you, and those kind of things. So that's another thing that I've learned from his organization, is to spend a little more time thinking about, what experience do I need that customer or client or partner or whoever to have, and then what needs to be happening on the backstage to ensure that that's going to happen.
Yep. That's funny because the two things that I wrote down around just other businesses that people could learn from for their businesses were with Keller Williams, and they were two things you exactly just touched on. The first one was career visioning, and the second one was the physical versus the virtual that Gary Keller and Jason Abrams have been talking about a lot. But that physical versus virtual is kind of similar to what you just said with the backstage and front stage, only it's making the list of. And that we've been working on this for my real estate team, but we've been looking at, okay, of all the ways that you're touching your clients and everybody in your business, no matter what business that is, what are the virtual ways and then what are the physical ways? Because with all of the changes in the industry and us being in the fourth industrial revolution and things changing so rapidly, we have the ability to touch people virtually so much more, just like you and I talked about before we started recording that. I think Brendan Burchard has touched me like 96 times in the last 2 weeks since I ordered his planner. I mean, it's crazy. But what Gary talks about is you can't forget the physical. So how are you getting in front of them? How are you calling them? When are you seeing them? All of those types of ways too. And so I love that Jason Abrams has been talking about splitting your business down the middle and making a list of right now, how are your clients seeing you virtually? And then how are they seeing or hearing from you physically? And which one do you need to pay more attention to? Because now with the way that the industry is, we can't be 100% one or 100% the other. We've got to be doing both at a really, really high level, which is something that not a lot of people are used to, no matter what business you're in. Most people are either really on the physical side or they're really on the virtual side. And so that's something that's made me think so much lately, in regards to every business. I mean, from your real estate business to the team, to the market center, to the region, to the podcast, to anything that you're doing, are we 100% virtual, or do we have some physical in there? Like, how is that working?
Mhm.
And where do we need to change or pivot?
I think if you're 100% physical, you can't leverage enough. You can't,
Yep.
you got, so to get leverage, you have to start using the virtual so that you can make more touches and you can do things that you can't do if you were physically doing it all the time, especially by yourself.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. And then honestly, I mean, for me, and even though we've learned it from Keller Williams, a lot of people haven't, but just the process of career visioning. I mean, like I have friends who I use that for, like for instance, a lady that I know that owns a hair salon. Like I've been telling her, you've got to come. Like you need to. I'll send your people one of these, and you've got to come to career visioning because people have no clue how to hire. I mean, I didn't for years.
Yeah.
And the hiring process, I'm like, every business could use that, especially though, I mean, ours is specifically made for real estate agents, but especially people in our industry. I don't know. I can't even remember what it was like before we had that, honestly.
Well, and like I always say, if every agent took their top 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 clients that
Yep.
were business owners and they brought them to career visioning, I mean, I don't even know what the class cost anymore. Let's just say it's $300.
$300, I think. Yeah.
And say you spent $1,500 bringing 5 people. I promise you the return on that $1,500 would be massive because
Yep.
those people would be so beholden to you because nobody is helping them. Jim and I were talking about this the other day. We were reminiscing about back when we owned his nightclubs. If we knew what we knew now that we've learned from career visioning and from hiring people and through what, Keller has taught us on that stuff and hiring the right people and motivated and talented and territory taking people, it would have been unbelievable what we could have done. And so think about that. If that's the case for us, we've got people in our databases that the best thing we could give them is this class.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they pay for it themselves, or if you take your top referring client that's a business owner, pay for them, give everybody else the chance to pay for it themselves, it would pay off, I believe, tenfold in your business. It would be one of the most dollar productive ways you could spend money this year.
Yep.
It's that good. So any final thoughts? I think we'll wrap this up now, but is there any final businesses or thoughts that you can think of that you've learned from watching other businesses that you think would be beneficial to anybody listening?
Not anything specific. I would just say challenge everyone to not think about your field only. I mean, that's what I love learning from, and I love that you get to go learn from other people, and then I get to hear that too, because I think when you sometimes get stuck in your own industry, and then you're comparing your business to people's businesses that are right around you or that are in we miss so much opportunity to think bigger and to just think, more creative and disruptive and all of those things. So yeah, I love that we get to learn from so many different businesses, no matter what it is, and then bring it back to what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the final thing that I've thought of that I would probably add is that I've learned from watching Gary and him build Keller Williams to the massive size that it is he always brought his people in the training. Like if you cannot go to training that all his people aren't there, and everybody gets trained from every department. They don't say, oh, this is your department kind of training. Like I'm going to teach career visioning there again this year. I can't remember what month I'm doing it in now. But anyway, I taught it last year. And there were a lot of people that came from all over the country to take it in Austin, but there was also a ton of, the different departments inside Keller Williams had their people there. So I think we sometimes don't realize that part of leverage is to taking them to training with you rather than going to training by yourself. And then the last thing I would add is I've learned about financials through watching our market centers have their finances done by the 3rd business day, or they get this massive penalty if they don't. And it has taught us all to get that transmitted by the 3rd business day.
Yep.
As long and as hard as we've ever tried, it's been so hard for us to get all of our other financials with our other businesses as clean and as quick as those. So I've learned a lot about the financial aspect of our business. And running a P&L and trying to stay in budget and those kind of things that I don't think I would have learned had I not got to see the inside of another business and the way they did it.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Thanks. Well, good. Well, Dana, we're out of time. And I just want to remind everybody that if you've got a question, maybe something we talked about today that kind of spurs you to have more questions, or you'd like for Dana and I to help you with any situation, challenge, or opportunity that you have, just reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And we'd love to help you with anything that you have or any questions that you have. And remember, the more you tell us about where you are in your business and what's going on, then the more we're going to be able to offer our help and our assistance with what you have going on. So thanks for joining us today. And Dana, I'll see you next week.
Sounds good. See you then.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.